momentarily on YouTube and Facebook. We have Elisa on the other end setting up YouTube and Facebook. So just trying this out on Instagram first. We're going to be taking questions momentarily. Obviously, Instagram, we don't have the largest audience, but Facebook and YouTube got a lot more folks that follow us there. So Elisa on our end who leads our digital platforms are getting that set up now. Thank you guys for joining, though. I think we're going to be ready to go here momentarily on YouTube and Facebook. How are we looking, Elisa? All right, we're ready to go. Yeah, so we get a lot of messages from you guys saying we should do lives more. So normally we've just done them on YouTube and Facebook, trying to do Instagram as well this time as we're trying to grow that platform. But we get a lot of messages from you guys asking where you can watch the show. If you watch on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, a lot of you guys don't know we're on TV weekly, so you can see us across the U.S. We're going to be taking your questions here momentarily, but it's on the NBC, Fox, CBS, or ABC station weekly across the U.S. Re-airs on cable, so Fox Sports Nets, NBC Sports Nets, ESPN carries us in Australia, New Zealand, Mexico, Caribbean, South America, BT Sport in the UK and Ireland. And soon we're going to have distribution in Canada. So you can check our website, grahambенsinger.com, for all airing times. Again, going to be taking your questions momentarily. Elisa on our end will be reading them out to me. But, we're in season 11 now of the show, and obviously challenging times with COVID, especially being a traveling profile interview show. But it's been kind of uniquely interesting figuring out how to navigate all that. Actually taped more episodes at this point in season 11 than we ever have before, which is kind of strange considering when this all started, people understandably, because of COVID, didn't want to see anybody. And the large majority of these we're still doing in person. But as you might recall, we launched the season with Dak Prescott, NFL kickoff week, which was really, parts of it were understandably sad when he was talking about his late brother, Jace, and what Dak and his family went through this offseason because of COVID. Other parts of it were so much fun seeing the football field he built in his backyard and, going out with him on the ATVs. And then we did a several hour Zoom with Tom Hanks. We spent the day in Park City with Lindsey Vonn. We just did billionaire Ray Dalio, who's created the most successful hedge fund in the world, but the connection to sport with him being he's big into deep ocean exploration. So we're working on getting some interesting access to him with this ship and a submarine that he has. Again, taking your questions here momentarily. So send in whatever you got.
Hey, Graham, we're going to go ahead and grab some questions from the chat because they are pouring in right now. And a lot of them are race car related. So on.
Okay. Well, and if I could say real fast, we just taped Matthew McConaughey. We have Kyle Busch next week. We were at the White House a couple weeks ago with Annika Sorenstam for an upcoming taping, which was super interesting experience, obviously being the day after the Capitol breach. And then we're headed out international travels the end of this week for another taping. So got a lot coming up. And just want to real fast before we get to the questions, thank you guys again for all the support. We're a small 10, 12 person team out of St. Louis where we produce the show outside of our travels. And it is, I pinch myself every day that I have the opportunity to do this, and it's because of you guys watching. And so appreciate it. Love the guest booking suggestions because, we really value those. So continue to send those in as well. And sorry for interrupting, Elisa.
I guess I interrupted you and I didn't realize. But we are getting a ton of questions on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. Guys, make sure that you keep those coming in and I will get them to Graham. But the biggest one right now, it's all about racing. People want to know your thoughts on what's going on with Lewis Hamilton's career. Maybe you could, answer how you think his recent races have gone and reflect a little bit on your interview with him.
I mean, Lewis Hamilton was now Sir Lewis Hamilton, the 7-time F1 champ. It's one of my all-time favorite tapings. Obviously, in the States, Formula One isn't as big yet as it is internationally. So, when we first booked him, admittedly there were folks on our team that really didn't know who he is, which is crazy because he's one of the biggest athletes on the planet everywhere but the States. And then his presence in the States is obviously growing. But one of the things that I found most fascinating about Lewis is, aside from him being, likely will, since he still has a lot of his career left, will go down as the most accomplished F1 driver ever. He has about as active a social life as any current athlete we've ever profiled. I mean, literally, he could be in Australia on a Sunday taping an episode, then is, in LA midweek, pops over to his place in Colorado, goes to New York, and then is in China for the weekend to compete in the next Formula One race. It is crazy, the social schedule that he has, obviously in non-COVID times, in addition to still being able to have as much success in the sport as he has. And I asked him a little bit about that, and he has found that he has more success when he's not singularly focused on his athletic career. But had a great time with Lewis outside of London taping the episode. We've obviously done Nico Rosberg before. We did Bernie Ecclestone in Azerbaijan. Before the great Niki Lauda passed away, we spent a couple days with him in Austria and Belgium. So love the F1 guys. Oh, yeah, I mean, Alex Smith's wife is gorgeous. Kind of a cute story on how they met, which we included in the episode. And super smart, interesting person who, it's unlikely he would have had as much success as he's had without her support, especially going through the past couple of years and all he's been through recovering from the horrific injury. It's so weird. We had a clip online, talking about how they met that we ended up actually taking down because of just the awful comments that people posted on it about her when she's an amazing person. So good people, and maybe we'll try and update that episode too at some point, given everything he's been through over the past couple of years. Great 60 Minutes story done on him just recently too. So, we did the taping several years back, and actually more than several years back. I think we did the taping in 2013, maybe. I could even be off by a couple of years. Maybe it was 2012 or 2011. But this was. I think for me, what I most remember about that's less about him and just more, at the time I'm in my early 20s, just getting the show off the ground. I think we're in season 11 now. This is season 2 or 3. And Kobe Bryant agreed to do a taping with me. Now we typically get anywhere from a few hours to parts of a couple days with the people we're profiling. But back then we were asking for like an hour. And end up spending an hour and a half talking to Kobe Bryant. And I mean, from life growing up to the criminal charges that in that period of life, to what he went through, to the work ethic responsible for his success. Sitting down with him, I remember feeling like, even as a kid in my 20s that had early 20s that had no business being in that situation, you felt like you're the only person in the room, and that he immediately respected you, regardless of if I was deserving or it was warranted. So, have really fond memories of Kobe, and it was, one of those life experiences that you never forget.
Would you ever want to write a book about your experiences?
I'd love to be in the position someday where there's enough interest in people reading a book that I'd write. I think that's the short answer. It's really like satisfying having the chance to travel, especially in non-COVID times, travel the globe, talking to some of these, folks, whether it's, China for Arnold Schwarzenegger, or Russia for Alex Ovechkin, or, we were in New Zealand for the first interview with Tiger Woods' ex-caddy Steve Williams, right after him and Tiger split, at the height of the, scandal. We've been, in Africa for Dikembe Mutombo, India for Virat Kohli. So, I think there's a lot more that you experience in what goes into the episode, that, we're going to start putting more content out there around that. In addition to that, it's not the easiest, like, getting access to these folks. I probably walk a fine line between being persistent and, getting harassment charges filed against us. So, that's a whole nother thing. But yeah, at some point, if there was ever interest in us doing a book, it'd be amazing.
I don't want to ghostwrite it. So we have on YouTube, Shade on a Cool Day asks, Graham, what's the worst situation you have been in with a celebrity, i.e., what's the most angry or violent a celebrity has gotten with you? But I'd add to that, has there ever been a situation where their response has made you uncomfortable or went a way that you didn't expect?
Yeah, their responses often go in a way that I don't expect. But to answer the question, and can you repeat his question once more?
His question was, what's the worst situation you've been in with a celebrity?
Yeah. Okay. Got it. One that immediately comes to mind, and I don't know why this one popped into my head, but we've been to the Philippines twice for Manny Pacquiao. Both really interesting experiences. The first time we went there, though, was in the first season of the show. And, I created the business behind the show. So in addition to me hosting it, we handle production of it. So there's, shooting and editing, to the ad sales and sponsor development, to the distribution, like signing on to outlets to carry it. So we do everything in-house. First season of the show, budget's extraordinarily tight. And I was able to cut a barter deal with an airline to fly us over to the Philippines for not free, but for like half the cost it would normally cost us to head over there, which was the only way we were able to get over there. And predating us flying to the Philippines to tape Manny Pacquiao, I'd met with Manny and his team in Dallas. They agreed to do the taping. They knew we were coming. We get there, and Manny doesn't remember having the conversation. The team can't get him to do it. We can't get access to him. And, we're there for only a few days, and you kind of see almost your life and career flash before your eyes, because I'm thinking to myself, if we don't get this taping, we are not going to have a show anymore, because there's just not going to be enough money to continue the production of episodes. And it was like the last day we were there, hours before we're supposed to fly out, we finally get the taping with him, and it was because literally we set up the shoot outside of his bedroom door, so he had to literally walk through us if he wasn't going to do the taping. So that's one that comes to mind. That was a really uncomfortable situation to navigate, but thankfully it all worked out.
Great. That's kind of, I didn't even know that you set that up outside of his bedroom door. There's a few questions on here. James Braun on YouTube wanted to know what your strangest interview was. Would it have been that one, or was there another one that was just a little different?
Strangest interview, we did one with Dennis Rodman many years back as well, and a lot of different aspects of that made it strange. But the piece of it that I feel comfortable sharing right now is, and I think it's Deadspin did a story on this where they were commenting on the look on my face when I asked this. But, genius me decides or learns in the research that Dennis had his scrotum pierced. So for some reason, I decide to ask him about what that was like getting it pierced. And he had an interesting reaction. I think he offered to show me, which I politely declined. But I'm like super uncomfortable asking these questions, yet I'm nonetheless asking, and understandably, I think got the response that I was hoping for, which was him telling me what it was like, yet I'm like completely humiliated. So yeah, that's one that comes to mind. And Dennis showed up like a couple hours late for the interview. Normally, when you're doing a taping, before you start taping, you shoot the shit with the person that you're featuring for at least a little bit to make them more comfortable going into the taping. He wanted none of that. Walks in, sits down in the chair, and is like, "Are we starting?" And so immediately it was uncomfortable from the outset. But yeah, I mean, that was many years ago now. And Dennis, has another like completely self-made guy who's distinctly original, and those are the types of folks that are really fun to feature for episodes.
I did not know that about the Rodman interview. Over on Instagram, the question has been asked, and this is a great one because you've interviewed people at all stages in their careers. What common themes have emerged from your interviews that younger athletes should be aware of or learn from?
I mean, the consistent theme among anybody that we profile who's had a lot of success is this unrelenting work ethic, this desire to succeed at all cost. The getting up early in the morning, working till late at night, being the first one in, the last one out, just going above and beyond. And, it's interesting, when you're kind of a younger kid, we'll see somebody having success in, junior high or high school playing sports, and you just see how it comes easy to them, and, it doesn't really seem like they put in a lot of work. And that might be the case then, but what you realize with these top athletes, and even the folks that we've profiled outside of the sports world, whether that be business or entertainment or whatever, that even the ones who had an unusual degree of talent that got themselves to a place where they were able to have a lot of success. The only ones that are able to maintain it are the ones that are putting in the work when others won't. So, yeah, being on the other side of that and getting those responses consistently, it just motivates you yourself to, do more and work harder. And yeah, I mean, that's one of the pieces of the job that I most enjoy. It's like I get paid to sit down with people that are like once in a life type experiences and just educate myself. So yeah, feel really lucky in that regard.
But you must have also witnessed, through those interviews, a lot of change in the industry. Alex on Facebook asks what you think about the change that the internet has brought to sports. We've got, internet stars challenging prize fighters to fights for millions of dollars. It's definitely created a shift in how sports are played and how players are viewed. Does it make your job harder or easier?
Well, I think that's really all I've ever known. I mean, at least as it pertains to our show, I think the only reason we've had the opportunity to even create a show is because of the changing media landscape and the fracturing of audiences. So, television is declining in audience while digital platforms are growing, et cetera. So it's kind of all that I've ever known. Obviously, that transition is accelerating on as it pertains to me and our show. I find it really fascinating to have the ability to, navigate that and figure it out. It's kind of exciting. As it pertains to, sports as you watch them, I think it's going to be interesting to see the Logan Paul, Floyd Mayweather fight. I would be shocked if Floyd doesn't destroy Logan. But, Logan has a huge audience, so I get why Floyd wants to take the exhibition match. In his mind, he makes a ton of money for not much work, and, why not? They call him Money Mayweather after all. I do think it's going to be interesting to see how the, fracturing of the audience impacts just sports viewing. And NFL deals come up every so many years. NFL still predominantly on the traditional broadcast networks in the States, the NBC, Fox, CBS, ABC, type stations. But, at some point, one of these big streamers will get an exclusive deal with the NFL, and that'll be because they're offering a rate that these traditional broadcast networks presumably just can't afford anymore. And I think that will be when stuff accelerates even more. So when that is, I have no idea, though.
Interesting take. So Ichabon182 on YouTube says, nice COVID beard. But that's definitely not.
I'm debating whether or not to shave it in advance of our taping later this week, where we're doing some international travel. I think I will, because it's going to be hot.
Yeah. You don't want to get itchy and just be like scratching away during the interview. Maybe make that a whole thing. Back over on YouTube again, really interesting question. Do you have one important thing or skill that you think is a must-have when conducting a successful interview?
Just preparing extensively. We put probably 100 hours of research into each taping preceding the sit-down between myself, our producers, our researcher. And I think if you prepare more than most people they're used to preparing for an interview, then that just separates you from the crowd. So that's one. And two's just listen. So, if they say something interesting, you have the ability to respond on the fly, as opposed to being focused on whatever your next planned question was.
And Matthew Rodriguez on Facebook wants to know, what is your go-to question?
Go-to question. I don't really have a go-to question, actually. I mean, there are consistent topics that you pretty much always bring up in interviews, but that's because, everybody has a story growing up, has a story about the path they took to achieve their level of success, has highs and lows in life and lessons learned. It's, every interview you pretty much cover the same topics, just with, different folks.
And Cooley B, kind of on that subject, Cooley B on Instagram wants to know if you share your interview questions with the athletes before the interview.
No, we've really never shared interview questions with anybody ever, to the best of my knowledge. What we have done before, in the situations where there's a language barrier with the person that we're profiling, to the extent it's at, we'll provide maybe more detailed topics that I want to touch on, but never shared questions before, because I feel like that excludes you from having some level of journalistic integrity, what's coming. Having said that, though, we will often ask, the rep of some big time person that we're profiling, if there's something that's important to them that we cover during the taping, because I've always felt like if they're going to give us that amount of time, then we should make sure they get as much kind of bang for their buck as possible. So we're always glad to promote, whether it's a business relationship or something on the philanthropic front, something like that that's important to them.
And Michael Hayes on YouTube wants to know, how do you choose who you want to interview? And then how do you get them in the first place?
So how we choose who we want to interview, I mean, there's not rocket science, really. We just, if somebody interests us, we try and book them. We have a weekly guest booking meeting, but between myself and our producers, where we throw out names, we update each other on progress of folks we're pursuing, and there's lots of people we're pursuing at any one time. Sometimes it takes years to get commitments. Other times it happens much quicker. So you have to have kind of a lot of irons in the fire. And I wish there was any one way we went about booking folks. Sometimes it's through an agent or manager. Other times it's through a publicist. Other times it's through a family member. Sometimes it's through the person direct. Sometimes we're emailing, calling, in-person meetings, quick to hop on a flight and fly wherever to get together with somebody if that's going to help in making the booking happen. So, you just kind of have to figure out whatever the best way in is to, make it happen. But yeah, there's no, I've never found a playbook for it. I wish there was, but we've just kind of figured it out as we've gone along.
So that kind of takes an interesting turn. You will often just jump on a plane and go anywhere. You went to India last year for Virat Kohli, and that happened at a moment's notice. And it doesn't give you a lot of time to prepare what might be coming at you culturally. Griffin Cordis on Facebook asks, in all of your travels, what's been the greatest cultural hurdle you've had to overcome, or has there been something that you've prepared for in advance?
I don't understand.
A language barrier, a cultural barrier.
Yeah. When we went to Russia for Alex Ovechkin, challenging as members of the media to get into Russia. Those have been some of the bigger challenges. Same with India is surprisingly difficult to get into. as members of the media. We've been to China for a couple times for Yao Ming in Shanghai. And I mean, one time, I mean, literally, we didn't have our visa until the night before. And that involved somebody on our team flying to their consulate and like begging the people at the consulate to approve our visas, only to like with hours to spare, get them and fly back to St. Louis so we could head out. So yeah, those are some of the. I know those aren't exactly cultural challenges, but when we're in a place where English isn't the first language, we'll have a translator with us or like a local fixer. And yeah, I've gotten food poisoning before. Got food poisoning last time we were in India, which was not fun. Lost like 12 pounds in 2 days when I got back. So it's always exciting. But yeah, you just feel really lucky to have the chance to go to some of these places.
So here's a quick fun one. Who do you think would win an arm wrestling match, Sean Payton or Tony Romo?
Hopefully Sean Payton. Tony deserves to get beaten up on a little bit.
On a little bit more serious note, Geraldo Jimenez Jr. on Facebook says, which interview has changed the way you see things?
Yeah, I don't know if there's one that has changed the way I see things. But, when we did the taping with Richard Branson, that was like one of my all-time favorites. First, was able to get him booked because I randomly met him in North Africa, an hour and a half outside of Marrakesh, high in the Atlas Mountains, and went up and introduced myself. And he subsequently invites me to play chess with him, tennis with him, and then like dinner and drinks that night with him and his personal assistant. And that then led to a month later we're with him for the week in the Bahamas taping this episode. And one of the things that really impressed me about Branson, and he's done a couple memoirs, yeah, it's odd too, but really good reads, especially the first one I'd recommend. And he's a guy that has had as much success as anybody, right? Multi-billionaire, but figured out a way to do it on his own terms, where he balances, the hard entrepreneurial work. And this is a guy who didn't know the difference between net and gross till he was like in his 50s, with record-setting world adventures, with constant activity. And I was just really impressed by his ability to figure out how to set up his life in a way that he most enjoyed while still having unbelievable amounts of business success.
So that was kind of an interesting get with Branson, but that's not always the case. On YouTube, Kent Peterson says, who has consistently turned you down the most for interviews?
We don't get a lot of people turning us down so much anymore, as it's just like not right now, or maybe some people don't respond right away. But we don't get a lot of declines anymore. But not right now. But I take it as them declining, where it just kind of motivates you to figure out a way to then get access to it. I think one of the reasons booking guests for this show is a very defeating job, right? I mean, the people that we most want are the people that least need the exposure, because we're going after the A-list type talent. And so you just have to enjoy the chase and the game. And if you do, even when people say not right now, or even when you get the occasional decline, you just kind of view it as an increased challenge to then figure out how to get access to the person.
On Facebook, Deborah Vigil asks, how many hours a week on average do you work preparing for an interview, traveling, doing the interview itself?
It varies. I mean, it varies a lot. I mean, there are periods where, I mean, you'd go like weeks without taking a day off because you're just working around the clock. And that's generally periods where we have a lot of tapings back to back, where you're having to prep for the tapings, but then, also running a business because we do ad sales, sponsor development, distribution, and production all in-house supporting the show. So those are typically the periods that, you're most, pressed for time. When we were first putting the show together, gosh, I guess what, 10, 11, 12 years ago now. I mean, there were periods where you're working, for the longest time we were doing, 16-hour days, 6 days a week, and then half days on Sundays. Because, I started putting this together when I was 22. I'd left college after a year and a half. I was working for ESPN, then NBC Sports, and I got laid off NBC Sports in spring 2009 at the height of the last financial crisis. And, I started with an internet sports radio show when I was in 8th grade. And so I had this thing that I started in middle school that was a hobby, then turned into a career. But you get to a point when you realize you're like college dropout, get laid off. You have some friends that, think you're doing well because they'd been on like the Tonight Show and gotten, some notable exposure around the time. But in reality, you're thinking, man, like I got to figure this out, or I need to really go get a real job. And so, especially early on in just trying to create this show, it was, all work, all the time. As it's grown some, and the show's still very much in its infancy. We have kind of lofty goals in terms of where we want it to be. That's, it's going to take kind of all hands on deck to really get it there. But as it's grown some, it's it's allowed for you to just kind of come up for air and, be able to take a vacation or, have a normal schedule on occasion, which, I've tried to take advantage of, because it's, if you grind indefinitely, it starts becoming kind of counterproductive, or at least for me.
Okay, we're going to take 2 more quick questions, and then that's going to be it for us. Okay. The first,
and thank you guys too for all the questions and for making the time to do this. I don't know if you guys like these or not, but if so, let us know. We're game to do more of them. And also a question I had for you guys that I'd be curious to whether you comment here on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, or send me an email, graham@grahambensinger.com. By the way, continue to send in guest suggestions. But a question I had for you guys, where would you like to watch the show? Where would you like to watch our content that you can't currently? And also on that front, what do you think of us creating our own app that serves as the singular home for all of our content? And what do you think of YouTube channel memberships, or like a monthly subscription type platform? That would not detract from any of the content we already put on all of our existing platforms, just more of it. So I know I threw a lot out there, but we're producing a lot more content this season. But then our next season, season 12, would start in September. And so we're tossing around a lot of ideas for then. And I'd be curious to get your guys' thoughts on an app, YouTube channel memberships, monthly subscription service, and or where you'd be interested in seeing our content that it's not currently. So comment YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or email me, graham@grahambensinger.com, because those are ideas we're batting around currently.
Okay, we'll do one last question. Everybody asks this question each time. What are the top 3 interviews you are hoping to get?
A sitting president. Man, I mean, I don't know that these are top 3, but certainly sitting president or sitting head of state. Michael Jordan, Lance Armstrong, Tiger Woods, LeBron. Those are all ones that are high on the list. Another one that is about as high as anyone would be Elon Musk. I think, I mean, if you can name a more accomplished entrepreneur, I'd be surprised. But yeah, Elon Musk and head of state would be probably a solid top couple.
All right. Well, that's going to do us for this evening.
Yep. Thank you guys again for watching, and Elisa for all the help. Again, send your guest suggestions in, graham@grahambensinger.com. Also, again, not sure where you guys watch the content, but obviously we're on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. You can watch us on TV and broadcasting cable in the U.S., internationally. On TV, we have clips of the show on video screens in taxi cabs in major markets around the country, as well as like the one place you can go for the long form uninterrupted interview is our podcast. So, it'd be great if you subscribe to all those platforms, like us. GrahamBensinger.com is the website. But again, thank you guys for the support, for watching. It means the world to us. It's the only reason we're able to continue doing this. And then also, I know times have been tough for everybody during COVID and what's been going on in the world almost the past year now. So hope you stay safe, healthy, wear a mask, and I'm as excited as anybody to get to the other side of this. So thank you guys all for tuning in, and appreciate your help, Lisa, and until next time.